Good evening. Welcome into State of the Tigers here on PowerMizzou.com. Brought to you as we are every single week by James Carlton, State Farm Insurance. If you are watching on YouTube, his logo's up in the, I don't know which corner of your screen that is, but one of the top corners of your screen. And his information is going to be scrolling across the bottom on our nice little yellow scroll bar throughout the show. Some would call that gold. Some would call it yellow, whatever. But you can get in touch with James at www. We don't really need to say that part anymore. carltoninsurance.net. You can call him at 314-961-4800. James wants to be your insurance agent. He is a diehard Mizzou fan. He wants to talk some Mizzou sports with you. Look, you all need insurance. You might as well give the first shot to a fellow Missouri fan, one of your own, a PowerMizzou.com subscriber. Get in touch with James. See what he can do for you. Maybe you can do something for him too. I don't really know what, unless you're trying to sell him insurance, but you can give it a shot. So get in touch with James, carltoninsurance.net, 314-961-4800. We are now going to bring Drew King on this screen. We're going to spend the next 45 minutes in depth breaking down Mizzou versus Georgia, 11 versus 14, Titanic matchup in Nashville on Wednesday night at the SEC tournament, right? This is what we're doing, Drew?
That's what we have to do. What else is there to do? Okay.
We are absolutely, I promise you guys, not going to do that because we can tell you what's going to happen. Missouri's going to trail by a lot. They're going to come back, make it close, maybe go in front. Probably lose, and the season's going to be over in about 50 hours, a little more than that because they don't play till 8:30. Could be extended 24 hours. Who knows? Maybe they could beat Georgia, extend it to play Florida on Thursday night. They will certainly not win that one. By Friday morning, the Missouri basketball season is over. And so what we are calling this edition is What the Hell Happened? I don't, Drew, we know injuries happen. We know that's a part of it. How big a part of it depends on whether you were Dennis Gates, whether you were a poster on our message board, whatever. But this whole thing to me cannot be explained by injuries to John Tonje and Caleb Grill. That's a part of it, but not a huge part.
So I kind of disagree to a certain point, Gabe, right? Because here's where I think that really hurt them. If that was an injury to, let's say, John Tonje and Nick Honor, I don't think it's as impactful because you still have Caleb Grill on the wing, right? And you still have Anthony Robinson at point, right? You still have some semblance of depth at that point. But because Caleb Grill and John Tonje both play kind of roughly the same position, Mizzou just had nobody who could fill that gap, right? They couldn't even throw Caleb Brown out there to see if he could do anything because he got hurt before both John Tonje and Caleb Grill. So all they really had was Kurt Lewis and Tamar Bates, and you couldn't really count on Kurt Lewis. And so if you were going to take Bates out, your options were Anthony Robinson in a 3-point guard lineup or some big like Jesus Carolero in a 3 big man lineup. And neither of those ever worked. So that's kind of where I think the injuries played the biggest part, was that they both came at that wing position and Mizzou just didn't have anybody who could replace them.
Right. I think, and I want to get this out of the way early. Look, I think if those guys are healthy, we are not talking 0-18.
Yeah.
We are not talking, as Sean says, the impossible, history making, right? I don't think we're talking particularly good.
Sure.
I don't think we're talking 500. So yes, that's a part of, that's a part of how 0-18 happens, certainly. Another part of it is guys that they thought were going to take a step forward this year did not take a step forward. I mean, yes. Nick Honor was a worse player than he was last year, right? Mm-hmm. Fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely.
Noah Carter, worse player than he was last year.
Agreed.
Without question. And those are the guys that I think the staff was expecting to be second and third, first and second options. And while they were worse than they were last year, and while they've gotten way too much blame for this because they needed to be better, but they're still two of the only four guys on this team that are capable of scoring a point. Like,
Yeah.
they're still clearly two of the four best players on the roster. Now, is it a problem that they aren't as good maybe as the staff expected them to be? Yes. But I think it's actually a far bigger problem that they aren't that good. And still, it was pretty obvious nobody could take their place. Like, nobody pushed them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to go back to my point about the injuries, right? You think about how many games that Mizzou lost by single digits this year. Like Caleb Grill can get you 6 points and a stop more than what they had in a lot of these matchups, right? Like I think he could have an 8-point swing impact in some of these games. And that would get you from 0-18 to whatever the record would be, right?
5-13, 6-12, maybe.
Yeah, like it.
Maybe.
I think it, and they ran into this issue a little bit last year, right? You remember the games where if Kobe didn't have a good night, Demoy didn't have a good night, like there wasn't a whole lot that went well for the team. Like you remember the Alabama game last year where Kobe was just out of the lineup. They got blown out in that game because like they were having to ask guys to step into a role bigger than what they were capable of filling. And that was the issue with this team in every single game, was just everybody had too big of a burden on their shoulders to carry.
Yeah, the Princeton game was another example of that. I mean,
Yeah.
Kobe, for everything Kobe did for that team, he no-showed in that game. And Demoy had like 17 fouls in that game, I think. And if I recall right, he didn't play a whole lot. So that was kind of the Noah Carter kept a minute for a while game. But it also gave us a sneak peek that maybe we should have paid a little more attention to what happens when Noah Carter was your number one option. So look, let's just start this way. Which is a bigger issue for this team and this program, offense or defense?
I think right now, I mean, they're both issues.
Right. And that's the point. They're both problems. But which one do you think is like a bigger problem?
This offseason, I would focus more on the defensive side of the ball because we've both talked about there's been so many times this year where down the stretch, that last 10 minutes, they cannot get a stop without fouling the other team. And that leads to like a mountain of free throws that lets whoever get into the bonus really early and then make a comeback while the clock is stopped. And so for me, like that's got to be the bigger emphasis here, because you can find scorers in the portal, but you got to find guys who can also with size that can defend on the other end.
Right. And I'm with you. It's defense for the same reason John says. So look, I've seen a Dennis Gates team score 90 a game. I know that it's possible. And I don't think most of the games, there were a few games they lost this year because they couldn't score or couldn't shoot, but they lost far more games because they couldn't defend. And offense, you can figure out. Guys make shots sometimes. I think it's fair to wonder if Dennis Gates coaches defense well. I'm not saying he doesn't, they don't practice it or anything like that, but I've seen his teams now play 64, 65, 66 games here. They've been bad on defense for almost all of them.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. I think program-wise, that's my worry going forward. I'm not worried that they'll find guys to score points. They can find better shooters.
Right.
I'm worried if his system, if there's something fundamentally flawed defensively about his style of basketball.
And you know what's funny, Gabe, is that was one of the thoughts going into the season that we had about this team, was like we knew that the offense was going to take a little bit of a step back with Kobe and Demoy and DeAndre Golston gone, but we thought that they could improve on the defensive side of the ball, right, and make up for that little bit of a gap. And what's happened is that they've actually taken a step back defensively, right? They were 180th in adjusted defensive efficiency on Ken Bomb last year. This year they're 189. So
Oof.
yeah, like it's on top of that, like part of it is just the sheer number of offensive rebounds they give up, right? And that's been an Achilles heel with Dennis Gates throughout his whole coaching career. Is none of his teams get defensive rebounds. He tends to make up for it in the aggregate with turnovers and things like that, but they always struggle to get to complete stops with those defensive rebounds, and I think that has definitely hurt them in some of these games this season.
And here's, I did not realize this. I would have guessed it was worse. Missouri was 56th in the country in steal percentage. They got to steal 11% of their opponent's possessions. They were 78th in turnover percentage. 18.7% of the time the opponent turned it over. Like those are decent numbers, right?
Yeah.
Last year, they were second in the country in steal percentage and sixth in the country in turnover. So I remember saying to you last year at times, if you get the ball to half court against Missouri, you're going to score, right? The difference was there were so many more times last year that the opponent didn't get it to half court that Missouri won a lot of games. This year, like Missouri still took the ball away a decent amount. They had a decent number of turnovers, but you need to be one of the 5 best teams in the country at that to cover up for everything else they don't do right defensively.
Yeah, and to go back to the rebounding point, Gabe, like they're still bottom 5 this season in defensive rebounding rate, and
in the
country, and we know. Like Dennis Gates gave kind of a semblance of his philosophy on that when he told Field of 68, like, would you rather win the rebounding battle or win 25 games?
It doesn't have to be one or the other. You can do both.
Right. And so I think that is something that definitely has to change moving forward, because in the SEC you've got teams like Florida and Texas A&M where like that's the whole semblance of the offense is like we're just going to put up shots and then go get the offensive rebound for an easy putback. So that's part of the system that I'm not as confident can work moving forward and might need to change.
Here's the problem I have with the snarky one-liners like that is when you lose, they look silly.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember when he signed Connor Vanover, like I remember he distinctly said, well, you guys kept asking me about rebounds, so I figure I need to go get a tall guy. Well, you got the tallest guy in the country and he can't rebound. So like it's got to be something with what they're doing that is and Sam, appreciate the super chat, appreciate you being here so often throughout so many of our shows. Brock says, I feel like not having a decent rim protector completely kills us. So I'm curious your thoughts on that, because I think Missouri's biggest problem is actually something else on defense, but
okay,
I'm curious what you think.
It certainly hasn't helped, right? Like I do think that there's been a lot of times where when teams get to the free throw line, it's because Missouri doesn't have somebody who can stop players from getting to the rim like that. But at the same time, like, you know, when Connor Vanover is out there, guys aren't necessarily looking to shoot around him. He hasn't played a ton or as much as we thought he would this season. But like Mizzou is 17th in the country in block percentage. So I don't think that it's been as big of a problem as Brock thought it was.
I think the problem with the main problem with this team defensively is their guards can't stay in front of anyone. And I mean, none of them can. Nick Honor can't. Tamar Bates can't. Sean East might be the worst defensively of the 3. Now, he at least makes up for it a lot of times by scoring 25 points a game. But even last year, do you remember how many of Demoy Hodges' steals came from the guy went around him and he poked it away from behind? I mean, it felt like 50% of them. And so you're asking your rim protector to be like, you're asking him to fix you're asking Jordan Butler and Connor Vanover to fix everything because guys are just, I mean, just going right around dudes on the perimeter. And again, like, I don't think Tamar Bates and Sean East are unathletic guys. I don't think they're poor players. So I don't know if the philosophy is not being taught correctly or what, but like it is so easy. I mean, look, this team spent 60% of this year in zone because they can't keep anybody in front of them.
Yeah.
Of course, the problem was as soon as they went zone, two things happened. First of all, the other team got the pass to the high post, like the easiest thing I've ever seen. And second of all, when you go zone, it hurts your rebounding, and they were already terrible at it, so it got even worse.
Well,
but then you go back man to man, and it's just dudes driving through the lane at will.
Right. And part of that too is like the help defense a lot of times would overcommit, right? And so then when the ball went inside and got kicked back out, Mizzou didn't necessarily like have the athletes to make that hard closeout
to get back out there.
Get back out there, right? And so then you would start to see a lot of times all the defender had to do was pump fake because Missouri would jump in the air trying to make up for lost ground, and then you're playing 4-on-5 again. So yeah, that's absolutely been the Achilles heel of the defense all season.
Yeah, I mean, I think look, it's all a problem, right? We're talking about varying degrees.
Yeah.
And everything's a problem. So let's spend a couple minutes and then we'll get to everybody's questions before we switch over to football in a few minutes. But let's spend a couple minutes on the other end of the floor. I mean, the offense at some point became Sean East dribble around until you find a shot. And I know you talked to a couple people. You're going to have a story later this week. Like, that wasn't the plan for this team. The offense we're seeing is not the offense they wanted to run coming into the season, correct?
That's correct. Yeah. I mean, like, once Grill went down, who, like, you know, I got to see him in the summer where he was just torching everybody. Dickie Nutt described him as a guy who can walk across half court and hit a shot. Like, was a guy that they were really counting on to be productive in the offense. He goes down, and, you know, John Tanjay as well. And then on top of that, you have like Noah Carter not really ever getting going, and Connor Vanover not necessarily producing the way that you were hoping for. So yeah, like the offense had to become very Sean East heavy. The ball didn't move as much as it did last year. And you saw like Dennis Gates encouraging Nick Honor to take like 10 threes a game. I don't know that was ever really going to be part of the plan, but they had to have somebody shoot the ball other than Sean East. And so, yeah, like that's not necessarily what it's going to look like all the time, but it's what it looks like all the time this season because of the cards that they were dealt.
Yeah. And I think for the people that are talking about the interior presence on defense, I think the interior is a bigger problem offensively. Like that's what they got nothing. I mean, the only thing they had offensively was Aiden Shaw dunks, Connor Vanover. Hey, he's 7'5", just throw it higher. He'd get a few buckets that way. Or Sean East, just these circus moves. I mean, you know, Noah Carter just and this is a personnel problem. You can't ask Noah Carter to be a 5 in the SEC. That's not what he can do. You know, so I think offensively the lack of a big was a much bigger issue than that was defensively.
Right, because it makes the offense one-dimensional, right? You know that Mizzou's either going to shoot a 3 or drive in and not be able to really get a shot off. Whereas last year, you could dump the ball inside Jacoby and he would move guys around, just bulldoze past them. And then if you sent a double team, he had the vision to kick it out for the open 3. So missing that, teams knew what to expect game to game this year, whereas last year you really didn't know, right? It could be Kobe's night or Demoy's night or somebody else. So yeah, like that was definitely the issue with the offense for sure.
All right, so I want to spend a few minutes answering some of the questions and comments you guys have. Sean says, I don't know what happened, but Honor and Carter both became liabilities shooting from three. Noah Carter did. There's no question. I don't know what his percentage was, but he'd hit one a game or so. But Nick Honor, that was actually the only thing he did well. He shot 37, 38% from three this year. That's good enough. Like, that's, that I feel like 40 is kind of the cutoff for elite. So
Right.
Nick wasn't an elite shooter this year, but he was a good shooter. The problem was that was all there wasn't anything else.
Correct. So I got the numbers here. Nick Honor was 37% from three. He was only 33% from two. And we've talked so many times about how he'll drive to the lane, pick up his dribble, and then not know what to do with it because he'll get swarmed.
Because he's my size. That's why.
Yeah. Well, and then Noah Carter, the thing with him is like throughout in the 4 seasons before this year, he's always been one of the top guys in 2-point field goal percentage, right?
Right.
And that was not the case this year. He only shot 48% from two, whereas last year he was shooting 65%. That's a massive difference. Yeah. And then on top of that, like they were hoping he'd take a step forward from outside. Instead, he took a step back, going from 32% to 29%. So it just like was a very ineffective year offensively for Noah Carter.
Yeah, no question. All right, so we've got a few questions. I find this interesting. Sam says, can we all agree that this was a humbling experience for Dennis Gates and company? And I want to spend a couple minutes on this because I think it is very easy to tell that Eli Drinkwitz is relatively self-confident, right? Mm-hmm. He doesn't hide it. The way he talks makes it obvious. I don't think anyone really would accuse Dennis Gates of the same thing, but I don't think their level of self-confidence is actually any different. Like Dennis says some things that, like he truly believes he has the answers, right? I mean, and look, he does have a lot of the answers. I'm not saying he's a moron or a bad coach or anything like that, but he has used the terms, basketball savant before. He has said things that basically like, I can't remember what it was earlier this year, but we asked him something and he's like, basically just said, yeah, that's coaching. Like that's me doing a good job, was basically the translation. Yeah, I think this year has to humble Dennis Gates. I think, I think everything has gone really well for his first 4 years. It didn't go well at all this year. And like, I know he said today, I don't blame the players. This season's on Dennis Gates. 100% right. He wears this one and he wears it for a long, like the stink of 0-18 doesn't go away for a minute.
Yeah, I mean it's the first time it's happened in over 100 years, so like it's gonna be one that's talked about forever. But yeah, like to your point, I think that Dennis Gates does like have some reason to be self-confident, right? Like he's had a lot of success in his career, and time again has like outperformed expectations. But yeah, like I don't know how you couldn't be humbled in a situation like this where no matter what you try, it didn't work.
None of it worked.
None of it worked. So yeah, I think that after a season like this, you do have to take a little bit of a step back and reevaluate like what went wrong specifically. So I do expect a little bit of tweaking to be done in the offseason for sure.
Okay, so look, the easy answer, right, is they need better players. We all acknowledge that. We all know that. They have to hit the portal. But is there something fundamental or schematic or approach that you think he can change in the offseason? Not necessarily full sale change, but that he can do a little bit differently that helps?
I would say, we've been talking about how the biggest offseason need is a point guard, and I don't disagree with that. But I really do think they need a big guy who has like some girth to him, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like I know they're bringing in Peyton Marshall, but we've seen this year, like you can't count on freshmen being ready to contribute right away. And so I think that they need to go get somebody like a Russell Chiwa from Georgia, right? Just somebody who's big, who can hold his own in the paint and be really physical, because the SEC is like one of the most physical conferences out there. And I came into this season thinking like, well, Oscar Tshiebwe's gone, you know, like I don't think the center position is going to be all that important. And then it turns out like Jonas Adu is really important for Tennessee. Janai Broom was an SEC Player of the Year candidate. Like it's always going to be that way in this league. And so that to me, when they lost Kobe and didn't have anyone close to bringing the same production at that position, that killed the team this season, because they really they had no answers at center.
My answer is similar to yours. I would focus the entire offseason program on physicality and toughness. And I would go old school Eddie Sutton in individual workouts and practices. And by that, I'm bringing in tackling dummies and I'm putting them in football helmets and shoulder pads and I'm beating the ever loving hell out of them in practice. Like, I mean, because this team, they can't draw fouls. Dennis has admitted it, because they shy away from contact.
Mm-hmm.
They create a lot of contact defensively, so wrong kind of contact. But no, I think I would have them live in the weight room, because if you're 6'11", you can't weigh 205 pounds and compete in this league unless you are an elite shooter, right? And these guys, or elite skilled, and the guys we're talking about aren't. And then I would put them out there and I would just say, look, I don't know if we're going to be the most talented team or the least talented team, but we're 100% going to be the toughest team in every game we play next year. And that would be my entire offseason. Kyle wants to know, do you think Sean East earned at least second team honors, or is that impossible with 0 wins? I have strong opinions on this.
I would say no. I do think that Sean's one of the better players in the conference, but with 0 wins, like it's empty calories. Like it could be anybody in that spot. So yeah, I agree with the decision to keep him off the All SEC team.
Yeah, 0-18, you get 0 honors. That you get the same number of postseason honors as you got wins this year, and I strongly support that. All right, it feels like the FSU approach is develop long athletes. Can Gates get improvements out of Shaw, Pierce, and Butler? Depends on how many of those guys are back, but whichever ones are, like they have to. I mean, they have to. These guys, I think it is fair to say, okay, nobody should have expected these freshmen to come in and light the world on fire. But they were bad, Drew.
Mm-hmm.
They were bad. All 3 of them.
Yeah.
Butler, I think, had more moments than the others against real teams. I felt like most of Robinson's moments came in the non-conference season. Yeah. Butler had a few moments in the SEC season, and Trent Pierce, we just didn't see any moments at all.
Yeah. To answer the question, like, these guys are still really young, right? So I do think there is still a lot of potential for all 3 of them. And kind of like the commenter was saying, like, they're all long and athletic guys, so they kind of fit that FSU mold. So I wouldn't doubt that they can improve, but you're wanting to see a lot in a short kind of amount of time here, right? We saw like Aiden Shaw take baby steps forward, right? He was a little bit better defensively, a little bit better rebounding, not so good offensively. And we might see those same kind of baby steps with Jordan Butler and Trent Pierce. You're needing to see like long strides from all of these guys for them to be like quality starters in the SEC, though. And that part I'm not as confident about.
All right, last one we'll spend much time on here, then we'll hit a couple quick things and get your odd in here. Remember when CY said we're winning the national championship? I don't know if he ever said that about this team, but I'm going to use that to segue into a broader point. And it goes back to the being humbled thing. They should not tell one person outside of their own locker room that they think they're going to be good next year. I mean that seriously. Undersell, over deliver. Like if I'm Eli Drinkwitz, while my whole fan base is talking about playoff, I'm talking about, man, I'm a little worried how we replace Cody Schrader and Darius Robinson. And I know you guys think this schedule's easy, but it's not easy. And man, we're going to have to fight to get to a bowl game. And then once we do that, we'll set our sights higher. I listened to Konzo Martin for 2 or 3 years here tell us he had the talent to win the SEC. And like, it was obvious he didn't. And I think, Drew, your eyebrows and my eyebrows were raised this offseason when people inside the program were telling us, not just off the record, but they started saying it on the record, we got all the pieces to be better than we were last year.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really understand how, but I said, I don't know. They did it last year. They know more than I do. Maybe they're right. They were not right. They need to undersell everything between now and next November 1st.
Yeah, I mean, they were talking about, ending huddles with chanting Phoenix, where the Final Four is going to be played this year. I don't know where it's going to be played next year, but let's leave location out of it.
Right. Look, no, you want to do that in practice? Feel free. I don't care. Just don't tell anybody about it.
Yeah. Agree, for sure.
Yeah. All right. So just a couple quick ones. Jason saying, I know this about men's basketball is the reason we haven't heard a decision on Robin Pinchton, the lack of an AD. Yeah, I think that's got to be part of it. I mean, I think an interim can fire Robin Pinchton. I don't know that you can hire a replacement before there's an AD, and I don't know when that's going to happen. But look, I think every day you go where you don't hear something makes it at least a little less likely that Missouri's making a change. I mean, I'm not going to say they have to have it done by the end of this week to make a change, but, like every day you go without it makes you wonder a little bit more. And then Kyle wants to know, will Javon Porter be a Tiger? And Drew, I think what we're hearing is, as we posted last week, like there's pretty good reason to feel confident about that happening at this point in time.
Yeah, I mean, Columbia native kind of fills a position of need with him.
They're all positions of need.
6'11" and all, but yeah, no, I think that Javon Porter, like really productive his first 2 seasons at Pepperdine. I think it makes sense for him to get a shot at the Power 5 level. And I think that his connections and his ties to Missouri make this kind of an easy landing spot to pencil him in at.
And I'll be interested to see. I don't know if I feel like he's a starter. I mean, he would have started on this year's team. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Is he a starter? I don't know. But he's in the rotation. Like 6'11", skilled guy that I think is on some NBA radars. I don't know that he's an NBA player, but he's at least on some radars. Yeah, take a shot, man. You need more talent, right?
Yeah, but to be clear, like going back to my point earlier about wanting guys with girth, like I wouldn't recruit him as your starting center for next year. Like he needs to be the power forward Noah Carter spot, because he's not going to hold up against the SEC bigs at
right. He's
210,
built
whatever.
More,
yeah,
he's built more like Trent Pierce than he is like the guy that just scored 75 points for Florida. I can't remember his name. But. Yeah.
Is it?
So, all right. So you're headed to Nashville tomorrow.
Yes.
You will be headed home from Nashville when?
Depends on if they beat Georgia, I guess.
That's the point.
Listen, Gabe. So here's the thing, right? You had a prediction a couple of weeks ago. You said, I think they're going to go 0-18 and then win in the first round against whoever it is.
I changed my mind. They're allergic to winning games. That LSU game, look, I watched a lot of basketball this year that you kind of knew how it was going to go. That LSU game was the most like irritated I think I've been watching this team all year long. because they were clearly they were playing decently, and LSU sucked. LSU was awful. And then it was almost like Missouri just said, all right, look, guys, we've been playing too good for too long. Things are going well. We got to just vacate everything for 10 minutes. And they did. And it was very irritating. It was not fun to watch at all.
It was a rough game. And I think I'm there with you too. I'm writing in my column tomorrow kind of my predictions for the SEC tournament. And I won't say there's a 0% chance that Mizzou loses this first game against Georgia, but I'm not going to be the one that calls for them to get their first win. Somebody else can do that. The Magic 8 Ball can do that. It's not going to be me, though.
Yeah, they've given us 18 reasons to pick against them. So I don't know why we would pick for them. Yeah, all right. Well, we're going to go to the 3-shot here for our 20 seconds or whatever. And Gerard is now on the bottom of the screen there. And just want to give him his chance to see Drew. And Drew's on the screen. There's Drew. There's Gerard. I think you guys have met. So that's that. Gerard, you're still on mute for what it's worth.
See, I was chilling behind. I was chilling backstage for quite a minute. I'm glad y'all talked all of this out. You know what? I wonder how, when viewers are watching this or listen to this podcast, the way they feel about Drew. I wonder if they felt about me when the football team was going 6-6, and it was just kind of like, oh, we got to talk football. I know that's how it seems now. We got to talk basketball. I wonder, was it a role reversal last year?
It was a little bit, but the difference was it would have been more like if you covered a football team that went 2-10, 3-9.
Mm-hmm.
This was but here's the thing, and I found this out over 20 years. Really bad is actually still pretty good for engagement. If 0-8 teams way better than 6-12 would have been. 6-12 would have just been, well, there's no real reason to pay attention, but there's also nothing for me to get super pissed off about. 0-18, people get pissed off. And there's engagement from pissed off, man.
Y'all know what's funny is Gabe talked about, it would be like if Gerard covered a 2-10 or 3-9 football team. That was basically my entire experience covering Texas State and San Marcos for 4 years. So I'm used to this is my point here. This is not nothing new for me.
All right. I now have an off-season project, by the way, from Freeway Jared. We got to get you a Power Mizzou backdrop. We will, man. We're going to order another one.
Nobody likes my Tim Duncan jersey in the background? Is that
Gerard got here 2 months before Drew, so he got the hand-me-down from Mitchell. So I got to order another one. That's just put it on the off-season list of things to do. So, all right, man. Drew, appreciate you. Have a fun trip to Nashville, man.
Will do. I'll try.
All right. Prince's hot chicken, at least, if nothing else. So
that's exactly what I was thinking. At least he gets to get the hot chicken.
Exactly. Drew's headed to Nashville tomorrow. We are headed to, I don't know, talk to somebody. There's football interviews tomorrow. I don't know who's there, but we're going to do that again.
I think it's position coaches.
Okay. Is Al Pogue there?
I feel like he is.
If Al Pogue's there, I'm showing up because I've never spoken to Al Pogue. I don't know that he's an actual person.
So it'll be Al Pogue, DJ Smith, Coach Looper, and Coach Peeler.
Okay, so, I'm there. I'm there at least for the Al Pogue session. All right, I feel like big news in football. Missouri got a quarterback. I wrote this morning, I don't know if it'll be a good move for Drew Pine. It's already a good move for Eli Drinkwitz. This is the exact profile of the type of guy Missouri needed to bring in, to me.
Right, somebody who's got experience in the Power 5, or at least big. I know Notre Dame technically independent, but yeah, he's got some experience. He did well. I think it was 22-8 or 22-6 when he played.
22-6, I think. Yeah,
his TD to interception ratio. Then he got hurt a little bit, so he didn't really play much at Arizona State. I mean, yeah, he's a good pickup. It kind of reminds me like a year ago when they were in the portal, not knowing if Brady Cook was going to be it. Remember, who was it? Devin Leary. Remember, that was the guy they was trying to get and stuff like that. It kind of feels like that same range of guy, but now you got him for your backup, and that's a whole different thing where you're saying starting caliber player on some teams, is your backup and can be somebody you start in 2025. That's a good backup plan for this year, and then something moving forward.
Right. I think the whole goal was, okay, we need a guy that if Brady goes down, the whole thing's not lost, right? Like there might be a little bit of a step back, there might be a hiccup, but the ship stays afloat. It's not like a cannonball that just knocks the whole thing out. Which, no disrespect to Aiden Glover or Tommy Locke, but if you're playing those guys, you're done. Especially like Aiden's a true freshman. If you're playing him as a true freshman, your playoff hopes are sunk. I think Drew Pine at least gives you, all right, hey, he's been here before, he can step in. The interesting part to me becomes 2025 because Pine and Sam Horn and Aiden Glover, and they'll have another true freshman. I bet Missouri goes back in the portal in December for somebody else too.
I was thinking, would they do another hop back in the portal for one more quarterback? But I wasn't sure because, like you said, that'd be at least 3 and then a freshman QB. But I could see it.
Here's the thing. At this point in time, and this says nothing about Sam Horn or how good a player he is. At this point in time, I can't count on Sam Horn ever being a factor in a quarterback battle at Missouri. He might be. If he is, that's great. But you just can't count on it. So if I'm creating competition for Drew Pine, I probably got to go hit the portal again. And the beauty of it now is, okay, you create that competition. If Drew Pine loses the starting quarterback job next spring, he go transfer again. There's no rules against it. So you're not screwing the kid in any way. They can all go anywhere they want.
Yeah, and Drew Pine, I mean, like you kind of started with saying that you don't know if this is a win for Drew Pine, but it's one for Drink. I think it's absolutely a win for Drew Pine. You basically get to be on a winning team and learn the playbook for a whole year. And then your competition, when that comes around, is a guy who maybe, I'm not saying he is. I think Drink said he still expects Sam Horn to play football. But you got a guy who still really needs to ponder his future coming off Tommy John surgery. And then you got, I guess, Glover, we expect him to be a redshirt freshman. You got a redshirt freshman, another true freshman. Like, he should win. And if he does not win and he wants to transfer, I understand it. But he has all the odds in his favor to be the starter in 25.
All right, so here's an interesting question from T-Rise. Would you feel better about the backup situation with Pine or with the healthy Sam Horn?
Okay. I got thoughts on this because I thought about this exact question while you and Drew were talking. So this would imply that Sam Horn being hurt is okay. That's not it. I will say it makes the QB room as a whole stronger. Like, this is your backup. That's cool. And then you'll still have Sam Horn in 2025. What we saw from Sam Horn and the little glimpses we got last year wasn't enough to know, like, still don't know too much of what we have in Sam Horn. Like, what type of player is he? What can he do? And he only got limited reps. So at least with this move, you know what type of player it is and how he does in P5 competition.
I agree. I feel better with Pine because Drew Pine has thrown 207 career passes in college football. Sam Horn's thrown 8. I mean, let's be honest. If Sam Horn didn't have 4 stars next to his name coming out of high school, we're not even talking about him, honestly. We're like, oh, yeah, that one kid they signed, the 2-star kid, yeah, he's having Tommy John surgery. And that doesn't mean Sam can't be a really good quarterback. He may be. He still can be. But I actually feel better about the backup situation now than I would have just because Pine's been out there. He's played before.
Right. And to be honest, real quick, go back to a point you made earlier. If Brady Cook goes down for whatever reason, let's say mid-season, and you put Sam Horn, a healthy Sam Horn in, obviously, I feel like you're thinking, well, we got to see if he can do it. We don't know. We just have to ride with it. I feel like if it's Drew Pine in that situation, you can say he's been in some big games. He's put up the stats. And we don't have to worry about, any really – well, he's healed up from his injuries, that he had before. But we don't have to worry about – we don't have to worry about any lingering, arm injury or whatever, or, baseball or whatever the case may be. So I think Pine is maybe a little bit better.
All right, so Freeway Jared brings up an important question. Did he get hurt because he wore number 21? I actually really liked it. I want to see a quarterback out there at like 64.
No, we was. I was just talking to the other reporters at practice about this, about numbers and stuff like that. Um, I I'm used to Sam Horn wearing 21. See, I feel like if you wear 21 and you're a quarterback, the only way I can get used to it is one, I've been covering the team, and two, he does something like he plays baseball and he has a really strong arm. Like there's something dynamic about him that makes me say, like, okay, I get why he's choosing 21. But if you're just playing quarterback and you're not a super elite guy, I don't know. Stick to 1 through 19 for me.
No, there should be no rules. Every player, like offensive lineman wants to wear 17, I'm cool with it.
No.
Refs can figure it out, man. That's
No.
it. No problems. They got to figure it out.
Disgusting from my eyes.
All right. So we're talking about Drew Pine. NFL free agency open today. They call it tampering. As I said, college football calls that Monday.
Stupid.
Every day is free agency in college football. So if Eli Drinkwitz is the coach of a team that hit the free agency market today, what's his team need? What if Eli's going out free agent shopping? He needs what this week?
Right guard. Okay. Well, let me preface this. So, does he? What type of spending money? That he could just get anybody, or like?
Yeah,
he
there's
just
no
needs-
rules in college football, man. He got as much money as he wants. No salary cap.
So you're attacking that right guard. You may get a. I think they like the cornerbacks they have, but you try to get the best one on the market. Do the same thing for defensive tackle. I think they're genuinely okay with what they got at defensive end. Yeah, that's about it for me.
Yeah, I would say another offensive lineman. I would maybe say one more pass rusher. Maybe they don't need one, but I would say maybe one. And if you get a corner, cool, but like it doesn't have to be the top of the market guy. You can go get that. You can wait for the second wave of free agency to get another corner. I'd be okay with that. General point though, I don't see a lot of obvious holes on this team.
Right. I mean, me neither. I wrote about another one to that point is I was thinking safety a little bit, but I think the safety room has a healthy balance of you got vets with Charleston, Sidney Williams, Trevez Johnson, and then you got young talented guys they're excited about in Roche, Burks, and I forgot who said this the other day, but they said Trajan Greco, the true freshman, has been making a little bit of plays in that back line. So I think they're okay with safety. But yeah, there's not too many places where I'm just like, man, you want a right guard. We're gonna see how that works out. And then maybe like another receiving tight end. If it's just free agency, you can get whatever you want. I know they really want to do that 12 personnel heavy. You can get another tight end that you know can catch the ball and stuff like that. Maybe something like that.
Yeah, I mean, 3 years, $95 million for a defensive tackle. That's I'm good with that. Any team I follow can do that. All right, so I had seen a question earlier. I'm going to go back and try to find it, but basically somebody was asking, other than no injuries, what are you looking for at the spring game?
Trying to see who's starting at right guard. Trying to see how much. I guess what the rotation for defensive end is looking like. I figure it's going to be Johnny Walker, Darius Smith, Zion Young. Trying to think of who the fourth guys. Maybe Joe Moore. Heard about him. Yeah. And then running backs. So talking to Kirby Moore the other day, it seems like he's saying it's really a 1A, 1B situation. They like both of them because they do different things well. Marcus Carroll's kind of, that bowling ball, Cody Schrader type back. He's doing a lot of inside zone is what he was saying. And then Nate Noel, it's a guy that plays in space. I guess he's a guy to replace Nate Pete. I think he does that receiving back role, that fast scat back role a little bit more to what they want. And so it seems like it's not just a give me that Marcus Carroll will be the starter. I do think it's more of a 50-50 though. I do think the workload will be much more split than it has been with Schrader and Pete.
Here's the number one thing I want to see out of the spring game on Saturday. Brady Cook and Luther Burton with clipboards as honorary coaches. I would not let either one of them anywhere near a live snap. I just wouldn't. I mean, I don't care who the fans are there to see. I don't care. Like, those are the two guys that you can't get those guys hurt. So there might be some people that lead the field mad on Saturday, like came all the way down here. I didn't even get to see Brady and Luther play. You know how mad you're going to leave that stadium if somebody accidentally gets knocked down and rolls back into Brady Cook's ankle? You'd be a lot more mad. I would not play either one of them a snap.
I think they should do the Pro Bowl route or the preseason route. Let them get a series, maybe 2.
No.
Then you can cut them for the day. I'm more so thinking about that with Brady. I kind of agree with the Luther thing. He doesn't need this. Just when I've seen him out at practice, he doesn't need these spring reps. They can go to someone else.
Well, and to me, this is because fans always think this is the most important thing in spring football because it's the only thing they get to see. This is the least important practice Missouri's had all spring because no coaches laugh after the spring game. They're like, we did nothing because they're on TV. And I think it's incredibly stupid, but I promise coaches are recording all 15 other spring games in the SEC. And they got some GA breaking down film of these spring games to see if they can figure out. So these coaches are doing nothing, man. They're running like 3 plays in the spring football game. And Brady knows how to run those 3 plays. Luther knows how to run those 3 plays. They've run them 750 times this spring. They don't need to be out there. Absolutely not worth. The spring game is the equivalent of the 3rd preseason game.
Okay.
You just go up there, Brady Cook, you go up, you sit in the box with Travis and Taylor and all that, and you just go hang out. You don't got to play at all.
Yeah, that's probably the right thing to do. That's the right thing to do.
All right, so let's see if we got any more questions. All right. Well, I feel like this is unfair because Drew's not here. Gerard, do you have any interest in setting up a Power Mizzou event where you and Drew do the Oklahoma drill?
Oklahoma drill. No. No. Football has never been. It's never been. Let me tell you a quick story. So high school, most of my friends were on the football team, and they were like, "Oh, you should come out." Blah blah blah. I'm a basketball guy. I don't even have cleats. I went out there in some hyper dunks. So of course, when I go to practice, everybody's laughing at me. While I was at wide receiver, they put me in for like 3 plays, and this is like a mock scrimmage. We're not hitting none of that, but I'm going through the players or whatever. I called all 3 of the pass. I called a touchdown. It was, you should come back. I was just like, that weight room session before this, it's not me. I'm sticking to basketball. And so I don't know. Maybe I, in a different universe, am a college football player, but no, I don't want to do that. Drew knows where he can find me, which is in his domain on the hardwood. That's where he can find me.
That whole time at the end of Drew's session where I was talking about the basketball team having to live in the weight room this offseason, you're just sitting there going, no, weightlifting ain't no part of basketball, man. I don't want any part of that.
It's not that I hate the weight room completely, but I know it's way different being a football player and how much more they hit it. Like, I can deal with cardio a lot more than I can continuously deal with being in a weight room. I'm cool.
I got you. Sean's wanting to know any recruiting news. Look, they just got Drew Pine. I mean, Sean and Gerard have talked to some of the guys that it's all on the site. Everything we have is on the website, either in a story or on the message board. So they had a ton of guys in for junior day. We're going to be trying to get a hold of them, but I don't think it makes for much of a podcast unless there's some specific event that's happened to go break down a bunch of kids in for junior day. But anything we've got is on the site. So encourage you to check that out. I don't know any, wait, hang on. Here's a question because I don't even know what this is about. Are you going to tune into the UFL? Gerard, what the hell is the UFL? Is that the Battlehawks? Is that what they play in?
USFL and the XFL have merged to make one league.
Zero chance I'm watching any of that.
Now I can't get down because in a way it probably feel like watching the G League to me. And when you watch the G League, there may be one player on both teams that you'd be like, oh, I know this guy. no disrespect to those people, because I know they're more athletes than I'll ever be, but I'm not interested in seeing, former practice squad guys or guys who were not. I got college football and I got the NFL. I think I can hold off. I can hold off.
I agree. The last thing I knew about the XFL was when He Hate Me was in it. So that's it. That's my entire knowledge of that, which is more than I know about the UFL. So, all right. Hey, I think we're done for now. We will. We're going to do this again after the spring game on Saturday. Gerard and I are going to do something from the press box up at Furrow Field. We'll break down what we saw, if we saw anything. Hope to see you guys out there. It's supposed to be nice weather. Thanks for hanging out. Like, comment, subscribe, share, do all those things. More importantly, get in touch with our guy, James Carlton, carltoninsurance.net, 314-961-4800. James will save you some money on insurance, talk to you a little bit about helping out Mizzou NIL. And who knows, maybe even run into you this weekend. Not sure if James is coming up, but we'll have a tailgate 10 a.m., spring game at 1. Talk to you next time.